In this video, I'll show you the fraud filtering and detection features available in Shopify and how you can avoid fraudulent orders. Shopify websites, like this one by Allbirds, have a lot of built-in security features, which means that as a shop owner, you don't need to worry about fraud all that much. For example, Shopify completely manages your checkout, which ensures that any attacks on your checkout are their problems and not yours. However, you need to understand if you get a disputed order, also known as a chargeback, the circumstances under which you're covered and which you aren't. If you use ShopPay, you're only covered against chargebacks where you can prove you delivered the item to the cardholder's address via a tracked service. That means you must take time to understand the fraud filters which are available on Shopify. When setting up ShopPay, there are a number of settings you need to understand. These can be accessed from Settings and then Payments. And under ShopPay, if you do Manage, here you can see the different cards you're accepting. And then if we go down, we have a section called Fraud Prevention. Now, there are two tests here. One is for AVS code and one is the CVV code, also known as the CV2 code. So what are these things? The first is a check on the numbers of the address. This check compares the numbers in the address that is specified by the customer against the numbers which are registered for that card. So in this case, if the address is 10 Abbey Road, St Albans, AL3 1LR, it'll check the 10 and the 31. Note that it's not actually checking the name. The CV2 code, also known as the CVV code, are the 3 digits on the back of your card. When you're setting up ShopPay, you can choose the conditions under which you reject any orders. So in this case, you can say, okay, if it fails the AVS code, as in have they entered an address which is different from the address on the card, then you can fail it. And secondly, you can decline the payment if it fails the CV2 code. Now, I would definitely recommend ticking this CVV verification because people should have the card with them, and that's a check that they have the card. But I think this AVS one is a bit more difficult because people can just get the address wrong or they can deliver it to a different address. So I would not recommend having that ticked, though if you're selling high-value items, you might want to have that ticked. The other thing you need to look at is the customer statement descriptor. Now, this is what appears on the customer's credit card statement. You should change this so it's descriptive of your store so people recognize it when they look at their card statement. Each transaction in Shopify paid by ShopPay has a fraud score. If we go to an order, this fraud analysis is down on the right-hand side. If we click the little I button, we can see the details. Now, Shopify has a number of checks it does to give you an indication of whether it thinks this is a fraudulent order or not. Bear in mind, you get false positives and false negatives. So as you're going to see, there's a number of different things it uses. It'll look at things like the IP address that's used, the distance between the shipping address and the location of the IP address, and it uses that to build up a picture of whether it thinks it's a fraudulent order or not. Bear in mind that if it says high, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a fraudulent order. What it means is you just need to look at that order a bit more carefully. For example, if someone has moved countries recently, the place where the card is registered and where they made the payment from can be very different, and you might get a high score on this fraud score. What I recommend doing is, before you process the orders every day, go into Shopify and filter for high fraud scored orders. So we can do that by adding a filter, and then we do fraud risk, and then we can do high or medium. And we'll see the orders which may have a problem. And then it's a good idea to then look at those orders. So what are the warning signs you should look for with orders? The first thing I'd say is look for strange orders. So have they bought, for example, a very large order with lots of slightly strange products in it? If you're, for example, selling prams, have they bought 3 prams? Have they bought 3 prams and 2 cots or something? I mean, people don't normally do that. Do the email address and the name on the order look like the kind of thing that people would use if they were creating an email address themselves? Or does it look just like a jumble of letters which have been created together to create an email address? So, for example, if the email address is trevorginn@hotmail.com, that would seem like a reasonable email for someone called Trevor Ginn. If it was an email which was, say, trevorginn456@hotmail.com, that doesn't look like the kind of thing that people would choose. Look and see whether the delivery address and the card address are different. If they are different, you can ask yourself why. And also if the customer wants it very quickly. So if they ring up and they say, we must have it tomorrow, can you deliver it quickly? That is a warning sign. So none of these things taken together actually mean anything, but you just get a picture of what the order's like. So what should you do if you get a chargeback? Firstly, you should contact the customer. Customers can do chargeback for various reasons. It could be just that they don't recognize the order or it hasn't turned up or something like that. And just the first thing they did was do a chargeback. Contact them and see if actually there's some way you can resolve it without having to go for the card provider. If it is actually a fraudulent order or the customer is actually continuing to dispute the transaction, then what you should do is provide the documents to the card processor via Shopify, and you need to carefully give them the documents they want. So that would include, for example, the tracking details of the order and any kind of communication you had with the customer. So if you have a chargeback, you can do add filter and then chargeback and inquiry status, and then you can select and you can see anything which had a chargeback, and you can select the orders that have chargeback, and then you can submit the documentation that Shopify requests. I recommend doing that as soon as possible after you've had a chargeback complaint.